Well, there are signs food inflation may be slowing down in the short term. The Pietermaritzburg Economic Justice and Dignity Group has published its Household Affordability Index for February of 2023. Now, it tracks food price data from 44 supermarkets and 30 butcheries across the country. Month on month, the food basket increased by just under 11 rand, and year on year, it's a different story. Well, the basket went up by just over 570 rand from 2022 to 2023. So we're now joined by the PMBEJD Coordinator, that's Mervyn Abrahams, speaking to us now about this. And Mervyn, always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, let's talk about the food basket, because that's what people want to know. Can we still afford food in this country? What's your data telling you?
So good morning, Jamila, and good morning to all your viewers. So the situation, the financial situation of households, particularly households in the lower income bracket, are extremely stressed, Jamila. And the reasons for that is, even though the food inflation are beginning to come down, correctly as you've said, this month we've only seen a 0.2% increase in our basket. Unfortunately, the other types of household income, the levels of household income and the other increases that are looming are threatening this otherwise fairly good picture. So, for instance, when we look at the national minimum wage, currently it's 3,700 in that region, while the cost of our basket already is almost 5,000. So, you know, you just cannot buy the amount of food you need if you just do not have the levels of income. And it's for that reason why we have welcomed the 9.6% increase on the national minimum wage, because it at least allows households a little bit of extra in order to lessen this affordability crisis that most households are facing at the moment.
Yeah, I'm glad you used the word the food you need, because there are food that are staple food, right, Mervyn, that you need to have in your household, that are basics that South Africans need to have in their households. But it seems that those items as well are affected. So let's talk about those types of foods that we've also seen in terms of, you know, price increases.
So Tumela, if we look, for instance, at maize meal, a basic staple in South African households, over the past year, it has increased by 28%. There is no reason for such a high, it's understandable, because we do have sufficient maize, we produce sufficiently in South Africa, but of course the prices track global prices. So even if you grow maize just outside Bloemfontein and you sell it in a retail store in Bloemfontein, you're paying these exorbitant prices. So that's just one basic staple. But then we also look at cake flour. Cake flour has also increased by about 28% over the past year. We look at samp, which is also a very staple food. That has gone up by 32%. Cooking oil has come down from its extremely high levels over the past year, but it's still now 22% more expensive than a year ago. And then, of course, our vegetables, like potatoes, 10 kgs of potatoes at the moment is 41% more expensive. 10 kgs of onions are 75% more expensive. 10 kgs of chicken is 8% more expensive. Bread is about 18% more expensive. And things like stock cubes are 20% more expensive. Now, stock cubes play an important role, Tumelo, in cooking, as many lower income households will tell us, because they cannot access meat. And so the stock cubes gets added to a pot of stew, at least to give it some flavor, and the kids begin to think that they are eating meat, etc. So food prices are in relation to levels of household income is forbidding lower income households from purchasing sufficient and nutritious food.
This is a call for concern. This is definitely a call for concern, Mervyn. Mervyn, while you actually listing those items and listing the price increases, one wonders that indeed this almost 5,000 rand food basket, how is the majority of those living below the poverty line going to actually afford it? So perhaps for our viewers who are still wondering why these exorbitant prices, why are we still seeing these increases? Because it's important to also compare last year to this year's food basket. What would you attribute this food price increases to?
So we would say that there are a number of factors. It is well known that the Russia-Ukraine conflict had upped global prices, and even if we produce basic foods here, like maize, for instance, then those prices track higher because the global prices track higher. We've also had quite a lot of petrol increases over the past year. And of course, load shedding is also contributing to extra cost because our food is produced so far away from the table. I mean, most of our tomatoes are grown in Limpopo. Most of the tomatoes you'll buy in Cape Town, for instance. So can you imagine the amount of petrol it takes to transport it across the country? And when petrol prices increase, and that happens. So there are infrastructural problems that we need to sort out, like logistics. I'll get our rail system back on the go so that we can transport food cheaper. We need to get our electricity up and going so that farmers can actually irrigate their fields and producers can produce their foods in a stable environment. That will all help. But then finally, I would like to say is that our food system, Tamelo, is very intransparent. So we know what the farmers get, and they don't get very much. We know what consumers pay for at the retail store. That's what's in our basket. But what goes on in between these two poles, the food, the value chain, is extremely difficult to tell because we don't have the data. And so we cannot, for instance, make an assessment whether these price increases are in fact justified, because we don't have those data.
Mervyn, but I appreciate you, of course, speaking to us nonetheless and making sure that we are aware of, the reality of the country, not just us as ordinary South Africans, but key decision makers, policy makers, government have to absolutely do something about this. And all my thanks to you, Pietermaritzburg Economic Justice and Dignity Group Coordinator Mervyn Abrahams, just tabling down those numbers for us and breaking it down in terms of these different food price increases, but also what attributes or rather contributes to these increases. Just a reminder on that note, as Mervyn has spoken about farmers feeling the pinch, remember to tune into Checkpoint tonight at 9 p.m, where, of course, a Northwest-based farmer, Herman Dupree, will, of course, give us a backstory of what he went through. I'm sure you remember losing 2 million rand worth of chickens that was meant to go to retail stores due to power cuts. So the impact once more of load shedding on